Hey everybody, Dan Labbe here with Mary Kay Cabot. The Browns 23-16 losers to the New York Jets. But Mary Kay, of course, the story of this football game wasn't really the football game. It was everything that happened within, I guess, about, I don't know, what, 18 hours of kickoff when the Browns lost two starting linebackers and lost four of their top wide receivers, their top four wide receivers. And then also on top of all that, even though it wasn't COVID related, lost their starting left tackle on Sunday morning. So this team was certainly dealing with plenty of adversity coming into this game, and it ultimately leads to them losing.
Yeah, and again, like you said, it all hit the day before the game. It's not like they had time to figure this out and to game plan it. I mean, like the Raiders, when they lost their whole offensive line, they had time to plan for the fact that maybe they weren't going to be able to play in that game. But this was a situation where on Saturday they all just were gone in a flash, and they didn't. Then they had to get on a plane and logistically get to their hotel and do all of that. Now, Kevin Stefanski is unflappable and you can't rattle the guy, but this is enough to rattle anybody when you have to basically, kind of start from scratch at 8 o'clock on Saturday night. And I just I don't think they were able to overcome that. Now, they say they were, and they're not using it as an excuse. Baker Mayfield puts it on himself, and he says if he would have hung on to the ball and not fumbled it three times and put it on the ground, that they maybe could have won this football game. But it just seems like as a group, they just didn't handle this situation as well as they could have. I don't think they had the right game plan, for what happened. Um, I don't know. It was very unfortunate, and now they've got to go out and it's one and in or one and done.
Yeah, they ended up having an opportunity to clinch this playoff berth. It didn't look like it at about 3 o'clock on Sunday. It looked like the Colts were going to roll to a win over the Steelers. And the Browns obviously did end up losing, but the Steelers rallied at the same time the Browns were trying to rally as well and end up winning that game and clinching the AFC North.
It seems like they could have found a way to get their passing game going a little bit more than they were able to, because these guys obviously shut down Nick Chubb. That was the game plan for the Jets. We are going to take Nick Chubb out of the game and we're going to make you try to beat us with your arm. And I still think they should have been able to do that. I still think they should have been able to somehow, some way, pass the ball well enough to score more points and to do a little bit better of a job in this game, whether it be throwing to Kareem Hunt, whether it was taking some shots to a Derek Willis. Maybe they went a little too conservative on the whole wide receiver thing, thinking that these guys just really weren't ready to be out there handling this. Austin Hooper, he had 15 targets, caught about half of them. That's also not enough. That's not enough. Those guys have to connect better than that. But that's been a work in progress all season long. But as you know, Dan, Baker put this all on himself. He's mad at himself. He's furious. He said, I failed this team. I put the ball on the ground 3 times. He got up and he walked away from out of his press conference. He took one question, gave a lengthy answer, and then he walked away. And, at first my thought was, that's really not how a starting quarterback should handle that situation. That was my first thought, that he's got to be better than that he's got to be able to say, you know what, I can sit here and face the music, even though things did not go my way tonight. But the more I thought about it, I'm willing to cut him a bunch of slack on this, because I mean, who has to go through everything that this team had to go through in the last 24 hours? And it's been really challenging, really stressful, and really difficult. So the more I thought about it after that, I felt bad for him, because I know how much he loves this football team. I know how much this means to him. I know how much he wanted to put this team into the playoffs tonight for the first time in 18 years. So I ended up kind of understanding where he was going with that, and in the end, kind of feeling bad for the whole situation.
Well, and to Baker's credit, he's never shirked responsibility. I mean, remember last year, all those viral those viral photos of him at post game press conferences and his white t-shirts and things like that. So even when he was going through everything last year, he never really shirked standing there and answering questions from us. So clearly today it was just a frustrated quarterback. And so I guess that's what you're trying to balance when you look at this game. How much of it was circumstance and how much of it was you put the ball on the ground 3 times. Austin Hooper, like you mentioned, 15 targets, 7 catches. Maybe you didn't run the ball enough. Kareem Hunt had a drop and maybe wasn't as much of a factor as people wanted him to be today. So I guess that's what you're trying to do is balance. How much do you blame what you and how much do you blame what you basically had no control over?
Well, the strip sacks, the offensive linemen are going to get beat and you're going to get a strip sack and you're going to lose the ball, even though obviously you want to try not to in those situations. But even with the first 2 that cost them 10 points, you still have a chance there at the end. You've got I looked at that and I wrote down, this is like one of the biggest plays of in Brown's recent history, that play. And I just kept on thinking, this is it. This could be it right here for the rest of the season. And so you can't fumble on that play. You can't. He knows it. Kevin Stefanski knows it. They have to expect more from him. And you would have thought that after what happened in Tennessee, he was so mad at himself for that. Fortunately for them, that didn't cost them that game. But it could have, it could have. So, and he was so furious at himself after that. So you would think that something like that would not happen when you get your next chance to try it. But lo and behold, it did. And the only thing I can say is, knowing Baker as well as I do over watching him and dealing with him for the last 3 years, he's going to be really mad at himself. He's going to be really mad. And when his back is against the wall, he comes out swinging and fighting. And he is going to be a holy roly terror against the Steelers.
Well, I think he's going to have some receivers that are pretty angry as well that they didn't get to play. Look, this sets up your win and in scenario against Pittsburgh. They win against Pittsburgh, they're in. They lose, they can still get in, but they're going to need help to do it. So they have that going for them. The only kind of nervous thing about that kind of comes from what happened Saturday night. There's just things that could happen in a win or go home situation that could be out of your control.
It will be interesting to see how the Pittsburgh Steelers approach this football game, right? They technically have most of what they need, right? If they wanted to, they could rest some people. But the other thing to consider is, do you really want to set yourself up for a situation where you could have to see the Cleveland Browns again in the playoffs? So it might behoove them to try to knock the Browns out. That would be something to play for. So, it's going to be interesting to see what their mindset is, but we sure know that the Browns are going to come out with their hair on fire. They're going to be at home and they know what's at stake.